Welcome to my interior design kids club. So today I am going to show you how to make a quilt cover. And one of the things I'm going to show you is how to use a sewing machine. Don't worry if you haven't got a sewing machine, because you can also make your quilt cover by hand. So here's one that I was working on this morning. Look at this fabric. Oh, that's lovely, isn't it? Really nice. And that's just a little slip cover. And that's all hand sewing. You see my little stitches? And remember, we used the little stitches when we made the pillows and when we made our duvet. So you could refer back to that as well if you need a little help. Let me show you what that looks like. It's really quite lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. So the duvet just fits inside. Whoa. And then for this, I'd probably put it lengthways, and then I'd probably just put a little slip stitch at the top, because look, oh, because it's double-sided, you see. We could either do it that way or we could do it this way. I think I prefer the other way. And don't worry about the end, because I'm actually going to put some ribbons, some little ribbons on there as well. And then I can fasten it up. But if you want, you can make this permanent and slip stitch that. But I want to be able to change the duvet covers and have a different type of look in my doll's house. So I think that looks lovely, doesn't it? Because at the moment, the Great British Sewing Bee, that's what it's called, isn't it? That started again. So I thought I'd give you some inspiration. And also it can be overwhelming how to use a sewing machine. So I want to really show you how simple and easy and quick it is to make something. My sewing machine is quite old. Oh, it's very heavy, it's so old. It was old when my mum bought it, and then I took it off my mum, so it's even older now. So this is a Singer sewing machine, but most sewing machines are quite the same anyway, and we're just doing basic sewing. So I'll just take you through how to start with your sewing machine. So the first thing you need is your cotton reel, and then that sits on the top here. Look, this is even bent. Look at it, it's wonky. So wonky. It should be like this. It should be like that one, nice and straight. But it's wonky. So you're going to need a cotton reel, and then this is what's called a spool. So that goes in the bottom. And then what happens when you sew is that these two pieces of thread lock together through the fabric, and that's how it stops it coming apart. So let's have a look at the cotton reel first, or the bobbin. So that goes on the top, and you need to think down, up, down. It's the same with every machine, down, up, down. So I'm going to wet the end so it's easier to go through. So there's a linking loop at the top, and then I'm going to come down, and it's going to go through this funny little thing, which is my tension wheel. And when you're sewing different fabrics, you need different tension. So maybe if you've got a thinner fabric, like a really thin, like this cotton shirt I've got on, you may need a thicker tension just to keep it together. And if you've got a thicker fabric like this velvet, then you may need a lighter tension just to give it a bit more give. So the tension's really important, and the thread's got to go round this tension wheel. Okay, and then I'm going to test it, make sure it's okay, just by pulling both of these threads. So we come down and then we're going to go up and we're going to thread it through this little eye here, and you'll see if I've got a wheel here and I just use that, and as that goes up and down then the needle goes up and down, so they work in unison. Whoa! So we need it to go through there. So we've come down, we're going back up, and then we're going to go down again. So I just hook it into the side, which is just to keep it in place really. And then I'm going to thread it through the needle. And then with the spool, I'm going to slot that in. With my machine, the thread needs to come towards me, not go away from me. So it needs to come towards me. And then I pop that in. And to get that spool thread up by the needle, I put down my presser foot. There's a lever at the back here. See, and then that's called presser foot there, like a little foot. Goes up and down. Put that down because then that's going to protect the needle for the next bit. Then I hold the thread of the needle. I use my wheel to take the needle down slowly and back up. And you will notice that that will catch the other thread from the spool. And I can close the door, up goes the presser foot, and both threads go to the back. So all you need to remember is down, up, down. And then that's how you set up your machine. I've got different numbers here, 0 to 5, and that's the, whether I want my sewing to be straight or whether I want it to be zigzag. So I just got it on 0 because I'm just doing a straight stitch today. Let's keep it basic, shall we? Keep it easy. And then here I've got left, centre and right, and that actually moves the needle. So I can change the position of the needle, but I'm just got it on normal centre in the middle for today. Normally I've got a light, but that's broken, so I need to get it maintained and get a light, so I can only sew in the daytime at the moment, which is handy. So lucky that it's the daytime. So the sewing machine also has a presser foot, which is this, and when you press that down then the needle goes down. So you press this with your foot and that's how you operate, that's how you make it work, and then the needle will go up and down. See, if I press it, whoa, the needle goes up and down. So when I'm sewing, I'm going to be pressing this with my foot. The harder you press it, the quicker it goes. The softer you press it, the slower it goes. And when you start off, just go really slowly. I can go quickly because I've been doing this since I was about 4 years old, and my grandma taught me how to use a sewing machine. So what I'm going to show you today, let me just put that straight for me, that makes it a bit easier, and then you can see what's happening here, sideways on, lift that presser foot. So today I've been working on making a duvet cover, a quilt cover that's lots of little pieces together. Do you like that? That looks quite nice, doesn't it? So this is quite a complicated one compared to that one, which is quite simple. So I'm going to show you the more difficult one because then it's easier for you to do the smaller one, the simpler one. So this is going to be like a patchwork quilt, and the reason that I'm making this patchwork is because the pieces that I've got aren't big enough for me just to make. Look, it's not big enough. Just not big enough. So I thought I would do a patchwork one, make it harder for myself, and also show you the sewing skills needed to do that. So the first thing you need to do is measure. Now this might look a bit scary, but don't worry because I'll take you through it Whoa, that's what I had to do to get all my measurements for this. So the first thing I did was I got my quilt and I measured the width and the length. So the length is 17 centimeters and the width is 13 centimeters. And then because I want to make 3 squares, 3 by 3, so 9 squares in total, I actually then worked out, okay, so if that's 13 centimeters divided by 3, well, that math starts to get a bit hard, doesn't it? So I've done 4 centimeters and 4 centimeters, which is 8 centimeters, and then 5 centimeters means that it gives me that 13 centimeters along the top. And then down the side, the length of it is 17 centimeters. So I've got a 5 and a 5 and a 7, just to make the maths a little easier. And then, so this is this square up here. So this square up here needs to be at least 5 by 4 centimeters when it's finished. But I'm adding on an extra centimeter at each side and the top and the bottom. So it gives me this extra centimetre to sew it together. And then when it's finished, it's going to be the right size. So instead of 5 by 4, instead of cutting out the square 5 by 4, I've added on the extra centimetre. So it's 7 by 6. And then I cut out all the little squares. Where is one? Where's it gone? So I cut out all these little squares. So that's the 5 by 4 centimetre that is actually 7 by 6 centimetres. So the first thing you need to do is to work out your measurements, the length and the width. And then I've got 3 little squares for each of the patchworks. So then you work out the size for each of them, and then you add on a centimetre. So that's 7 by 6 instead of 5 by 4, because I've got a centimetre at either side and a centimetre top and bottom. And then at the bottom here, I did a count of how many different squares that I need to cut out to make sure that I've got 9. So 4, 2, 2 and 1 gives me those 9 squares. Make sure I haven't missed any. So then you cut out all of your squares, and then we're going to sew them together. So the way you're going to sew them is you're going to sew them, quite difficult to say that, in a set of 3. So you're going to sew those 3 together, these 3 together, and these 3 together, and then we're going to join 6 of them together, and then we'll join the last 3 to those 6. So to save a bit of time, I've already sewn the top, that's the middle, I've sewn the top 6 together, and I'm going to show you how we do this bottom line and then how we sew that onto the rest of it. So this is my middle line. So again, one of the things you need to remember is it's got a good side, which is the right side, and then it's got the back side, which is the wrong side. So you'll notice also I've also put some pen marks on there, which shows me where I need to sew, because that makes it easier. So that's the 1 centimetre gap all around. See? So I need to join this together, and I need to make sure that the 2 right sides are together. So that's the nice soft silky bit, and this is the nice soft silky bit. So I'm going to put those facing each other, and I need to make sure with these that I get the right way around. And look, that's a bit too short, whereas that's the right side. Now if you want, you can stitch it by hand, just do a few little stitches before you actually sew it under the machine. so that it stays in place. But I've been sewing for quite a while, so I'm just going to use the pin to help me. There. And I'm going to start sewing here and then follow the line over to here. So I'm not going all the way across, and that's because I need to leave the gap to actually help me sew these together when I have got my strips. Just helps you sew the strips together, makes it a bit easier. That's what we want, isn't it? So always when you start sewing, press the foot down, make sure it's nice and secure, and then put your needle down. I'm going to take my pin out, and then you just make sure you're comfy, get your presser foot, and then just sew down the line. If it stops, just put the needle back in. So I like to hold it one side. I'm right-handed, so I hold it at the bottom with my right hand, and then I hold it at the top with my left hand. If you're left-handed, you could do it the other way around. So I'll try and do it with my left hand so that you can see a bit easier. That feels a bit weird doing it left-handed. So I lift the needle and the presser foot, and then sew this, snip it off, and then I'm going to take both threads to one side, so which is going to be the easier side. Try and do it that side, and then I'm going to fasten them together. And so you pull the thread, and then I need to take my glasses off for this because it's tiny, tiny. And then you get the stitch. Let me see if I can get the stitch and show you. So tiny. But we need to make sure we fasten it off. You could use a backwards stitch. There. You see that? And then when I pull that, oh, it comes out. And then we can just fasten these together. Tie them together. Oops, put that in the bin. And do the other side. So one side will be easier than the other. This side's quite easy. Pull the thread and then use a pin or a needle, pop it through the loop and then pull it through and tie them together. There we go. So we have our 3 all joined together, and that's the back of it. Now we need to press these using an iron and make sure they're nice and flat like this, because then it's going to be easier to sew it all together. So let me just iron that for you. Hey, look at this. See how much better it looks? So whenever you're doing any sewing, if you make sure that you iron everything as you go along, and then that gives you some nice sharp seams. So then we need to add it to this one. So if we have a look at our design, then the big piece is in the middle, and it's got smaller pieces on the outside. So this is going to be, this is the 9x7 piece. 7 by 7 and 7 by 7. So if we have a look here, so when I actually cut these pieces out, I did actually mark on there, can you see, the sizes of them, because the colours are quite similar and I didn't want to waste my time keep measuring them all the time. So I know this one here is 9 by 7 and I know that is going to go in the middle, and then these bottom pieces are going to join onto it. So whenever we join two pieces together, like we did here with this one, it's right sides together. And I need to make sure that you see, now I've got this little V, so I just join those V's together. So I've got my right sides together so that I can see the back of the fabric. And then I know I've got my two little V's, they're going to match. Match them up, put it in a pin. Okay, so there's my pins in place, and then I'm just going to sew all the way along there, being really careful when I get to these edges. So on the back, I've actually got a line of where to sew it, but now that they're together, you see it doesn't match up. So I'm just going to draw one line across to make sure that it all lines up where it should be. Where's my ruler? And nobody's going to see this, so they don't know that you've been drawing all over the back of it. So there we go. I just want to do a check before I sew it and make sure it should be slightly bigger than my quilt, which it is. So that's going to be lovely, lovely. Right. So, again, get yourself comfy. Make sure your threads are to the back of the machine. I always have a little lid. This is the lid of the pins. And I always have that just here on the machine so that I don't knock it, because I used to have it down here before and then I would knock it and there'd be pins all over the floor. So I find that if I just put it here, you know, close to where I'm sewing, out of the way, and then it's not going to get knocked. So let's make sure this is nice and flat on the bottom and the top. And we're going to sew it together. Right, so we're going to take out that first pin. Make sure it's positioned correctly. Put in the, so we're going to put the needle down and start sewing. Where's my presser foot? There we go. If it stops, then just put the needle down and keep going. I'm going quite slowly because I want to make sure that I get on that line. So I'm sewing on the line and making sure that it's all nice and flat as I'm sewing. And then as I come to this next seam, I'm going to lift my presser foot and just make sure that's flat under there. Make sure it's flat on the bottom. So I'm going to put this foot back down and make sure that it's holding that seam in place. Take out my pin. Whoa, look at that. So I'm just going to again bring the threads to the front and tie them together. Now you could use this button, which makes it go backwards, so I can do backwards and forwards a few times, which means that I don't have to tie a knot in the threads. But with this being silk, it's a bit more of a delicate fabric, so just need to make sure by using this method it's less bulky, and then that means it's not going to pucker as well, so it's not going to bobble up or go a bit wonky. We don't want it to look wonky, do we? We want it to look lovely. There we go. And then we need to press this seam open. Whoa! So that's going to be the top of my quilt. So you make the 3 rows and then you just sew each row to the others, and then you'll end up with your set of 9. So for the back, I need to make sure that I can change this duvet cover, this quilt cover. So what I've done is I've got 2 larger pieces of fabric, and on one of them I've turned the edge. So what's going to happen is that on the back I'm going to create like a little pocket to put the duvet in. So one is going to be there, and the other one I'm going to sew the edge in a minute and show you. And they will, you see, they'll be like over each other, and then that will create a little pocket to put the duvet in. So first of all, I'm just going to iron down a bit of the fabric. So I've just ironed it to give it that nice sharp line. My threads snap, sometimes it does. Just chop the end off. Make sure again it goes down, up, down. Thread the needle. And put the threads to the back. Right, okay, let's get this going. Make sure you're comfy. Okay, so I've got 2 of those, and then I've got the top. So now I need to assemble them all together. So I need to remember right sides together. So first of all, I need to put one down, and then I need to make sure the other one goes across it, so they overlap. There we go. There we go. So all the right sides are together, and I can just see all the backs of the fabrics. And then I'm going to pin it together. Now it might be that you want to do a slip stitch for this, because I think we will, because it's slippy material. So I'll get a needle and thread. So I'm just using some tacking stitches, and I'm just going to tack these two bits together first. I'll do it on the wrong side, so they're overlapped. I'm just going to do a tacking stitch. So that's just, you just go in and out. You don't need to do a knot, just make sure the thread doesn't come through, and just in and out to keep those two bits together. And it like that. And then the other side, do the same. There we go. So we've got a tacking stitch that side and a tacking stitch that side. And we're going to take them out afterwards, so don't worry if they're not neat, and it's better if it is in a different colour thread, because then it's easier for you to see. So now I'm going to tack my little squares of 9 onto the right side, so right sides together. I'm going to just tack all the way around it, and then it's not going to slide apart because it's quite slippy material, this. Tack it. So I'm just doing a running stitch. Remember what we did before. So we just go, try and do it this way. We just go in and out, and then pull the thread through. Do a nice big running stitch. So we go to one side, to the other side, pull the thread through. Do nice big stitches for this. One side, and I'm actually going on the seams as well to make sure that they're pressed down. One side, outside. One side, come around the corner. Outside. Get it right. I'm going to put this down on here to make it easier for myself. So go all the way around with this running stitch. Yeah, and we're going to take that out at the end, so you're not going to see it, but it will just help stop this fabric from moving around. Because it is quite silky, quite glossy, so it makes it easier. Anything that makes it easier for you to sew. So pressing your fabric, doing a running stitch, makes it a bit easier for you to manage the fabric and easier to sew. So keep going all the way. So these are nice big stitches, just to keep things in place. That's it. There we go. Back to the beginning. See, tacking stitches. And then I'm just going to sew all the way around, but first I'm going to make sure my quilt still fits in there, and then I'm going to mark out a new line with my ruler. So with my measurements, 17 centimeters by 13 centimeters, so half of 13 is 6.5, so put that in the middle because this is the 13 length. I'm going to just find out where 13 is. So that line there on the top is 13 centimeters, and then I need to come down 17 centimeters. And 17 centimeters the other side. And then 13 centimeters back onto here. Okay, so I've marked where I'm going to sew. I've got my tacking stitches in place, and then so we just need to sew it. Again, just this straight line stitching is all I'm using today. Very quick, very easy. Get comfy. So remember, when you're coming up to these seams, just make sure that they're flat, nice and flat. As you get to the corner, go slowly, put your needle in, lift the presser foot, turn it around, make sure it's straight, and then put the presser foot back down. So I'm using this mark that I put on to go into the center of this little foot here, because there's a gap. So I'm using that as my eye line to make sure that it's nice and straight, and it's going to be where I want it to be. So use both of your hands when you're sewing to feed the fabric through. Don't pull it and drag it, because then you might lose tension. So just take it slowly, use your hands, feed it through. You get to the corner again, put the needle in, press the foot up, turn it around, press the foot down. Thread's broken. Lift the presser foot slowly, carefully, because this is silk. We need to cut it off. So why was that? Oh, it's because my spool is running out. So let me show you how to put more thread on the spool. So take the spool out and undo the thread, the cotton. So on my machine I have, turn it around. So I have this little arm here. Let me put my presser foot down to protect my needle. Now you might be able to stop your needle from going up and down. My machine is so old, I can't do that. So I put the presser foot down just to try and protect the needle a little bit. And then I just pop it to the side. And then I get my bobbin, my cotton, put some of it around there to begin with. Hold both threads so I get a tension. Use my presser foot, and that will start going. And then I can just fill it up. There we go. Again, leave it along, put the spool back in, put my thread. Remember, down, up, down. So we go down through the tension wheel. Check the tension, make sure it's not getting stuck. Through the arm, so we're going up, coming back down. Feed it through. Hold that, use your wheel. There we go, get that other spool thread up. Lift. And there we go, we're ready to go off again. So where did we get to? Part way along the side. So we'll start where we finished off. Just a bit before. Needle down. There we go. Onto the corner, turn it around. Just going to fasten these two threads together. Now this is a very complicated one to make, but I wanted to show you that so that you can see really how easy it can come together. It may take a little bit of practice, but I'm going to do a simple one in a minute to show you the comparison between the two. There we go. Tie this off. Okay, I need to tie this bit off as well. So on the outside it looks a little messy, but once we put it the right way around, it's going to look lovely. So first of all, I'm just going to trim the edges, trim off this excess material, this extra material, because we don't want that. We'll make it look bulky. That's not what we want. Oh, it's hard to cut. Ah, look. So we're just going to take out those tacking stitches. Whoa, this is looking good. And then we turn it the right way around. Trying to get the corners nice and sharp. So keep your scissors together and just use the rounded edge to tease out carefully the corners so they're nice and sharp. It makes all the difference. The design is in the detail. And the other one, remember to keep your scissors closed. We don't want to be cutting it when we've spent all this time making it. There we go. So that is my little quilt cover. Where's my quilt? So again, so we've got this little pocket. Put the quilt in. Oh, that's lovely. Feels lovely. Oh, I wish you could feel this. Oh, it's so nice. Oh, it's lovely and silky. Look at that little quilt. Isn't that amazing? So I'll just cut out some fabric, some simple fabric, and then make some little pillowcases to go with that. Oh, isn't that nice? I'm so pleased. It's lovely, really nice.